Welcome back to Coffee Talk. This is Diana Rocha, and today we've prepared a very special presentation for you. We are filming from the beautiful Fink Studio. This is a historic city property. It once served as the main studio for architect H. George Fink, who was the first city architect. And on this setting, we're going to have a more in-depth conversation with your top city officials. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Madam City Manager Kathy Swanson Rivenbark, Assistant City Manager and Public Safety Director Frank Fernandez, and Assistant City Manager for Operations and Infrastructure Peter Iglesias. Together as a team, they manage and oversee our City Beautiful and its nearly 1,000 employees with an annual budget of $192 million. We welcome everyone. Thank you for being with us today in Coffee Talk. Okay, ladies first. Let's start with Madam City Manager. This month of December marks your third-year anniversary working for the City Beautiful in the top administrator position. Even though you work for the city nearly 20 years as an economic development director, tell us how has been your experience all these 3 years as a city manager.
Well, first of all, it's so special to be back. Coral Gables is a unique city. We have great employees, we have a committed commission, and we have an involved citizenship. And so we've been able to look at where are we today and where do we need to go moving forward. When I first came back, I challenged our staff that we need to be an exceptional city where our residents, our businesses, and our employees wouldn't dream of being anywhere else. And if perchance they made another choice, we're going to make them wish they picked Coral Gables. And so with that desire to be exceptional, we set the expectation and we challenge them all. How are we going to get to that level of excellence that our residents deserve and our commission demands? So we looked at some of the issues that needed to have some tweaking. We looked at public safety strategy, that the commission had called for a public safety strategy so that we would not only reduce crime, we would increase presence, and we would build in technology. The commission also challenged us on the capital plan, $220 million on the capital plan, and some of the projects that were being done in the past had not been the caliber that our commission would expect. And so we needed to coordinate, we needed to take better care of our historic structures, but then we also needed to improve communications with our residents and our employees, reestablish trust, create an open door. And with those primary themes, we looked at reorganizing, repositioning, not creating new positions, but re-empowering certain positions so that we could meet those challenges.
So in an overall balance, do you think that the city of Coral Gables is moving in the direction that you anticipated when you first came? You talk about a new mission, the mission of having a world-class city with a hometown feeling. Tell us what that means.
Well, world-class actually has a definition. It is the top 10% in any measurement. And so when you're looking at what Coral Gables, sometimes people use the term world-class, not knowing that there's quantification that comes with that. We are looking at being a world-class city, but we don't want to lose that hometown feel. Coral Gables is personal. People come, we resolve their problems, we know their residents' names. They know that they can expect their local government to respond to their needs. And so in our desire to be efficient and best in class, we don't want to lose that feeling that really makes Coral Gables special.
One strategy that you have incorporated to the city management and that has proven lots of success is creating a two-branch administration, one for public safety and the other for infrastructure and building. Tell us how that where this idea came from and how has that impacted the city?
Well, listening to what were the concerns of the commission, looking at the challenges that the city had, it was important that we create subject matter experts that challenge, that push, that nurture and mentor the divisions so that we can really deliver on the commitment that we have to our residents. So one of the pieces was public safety. We heard it from the commission, we heard it from the public. And so we've always had two assistant city managers, but police and fire previously reported to a general operations. And public safety today is anything but general. So we combined police, fire, emergency management, human resources, information technology, and labor relations, because we have unions, those contracts are important, those relationships are important. We combined those departments, broke down the silos, and I went after a subject matter expert, not only best in Florida, but best in the industry, to guide us, to take us to that next level of public safety. That's why you see on one side of the shop, Assistant City Manager, Director of Public Safety. And in that instance, I hand them the keys and I let them do what needs to be done. My job is to provide the resources to make them successful, but it's their strategy, their performance. And when you look at what's happening with crime, with visibility, with the impressive improvements that are underway, you know that strategy is working.
Precisely, the city manager is speaking about Director of Public Safety, Frank Fernandez, who's here joining us today. Director Fernandez, your experience in the law enforcement career extends beyond local government. You've been a consultant also for the U.S. Department of Justice. You've restructured, reshaped police departments, not to mention that you were deputy chief in the city of Miami, and you retired from that city after 25 years of service. So your extensive is beyond what would have expected for a hometown like Coral Gables, a very local municipality in South Florida. But tell us why this experience is important to maintain the safety of our city in this world changing, where now we are expecting different kinds of threats in the world.
You know, policing today in public safety takes a totally different look, unfortunately. Having the experience of being in the city of Miami for 25 years, gave me the opportunity to work with many diverse cultures. Having the additional experience of being the chief of police in the city of Hollywood, a great opportunity, gave me the opportunity to reach outside of a county that I grew up in, Miami-Dade. I went to Broward for the first time. So the different cultures offered me the opportunity to really round my level of skills and my passion for law enforcement and public safety. You mentioned the Department of Justice. I've been blessed with the opportunity to belong to something bigger and greater than my career, and that is the opportunity to create a greater opportunity to develop and create legitimacy and procedural justice in police departments across the country. I've had the opportunity of working inside of 6 different departments across the country, trying to refine, refocus, reform those agencies to provide constitutional policing operations. And I've been blessed because those opportunities have made me better at what I do in law enforcement. Today, as we look at public safety, it involves a holistic approach. If a city is looking at public safety in terms of just police, then I believe that they're falling short of greater opportunities. As the manager mentioned, today public safety is not just about the police department, it's about the entire community. Our country deserves to be protected by everyone, not just law enforcement. We have about 800,000 police officers across the country to serve about 300 million people. You do the numbers and you'll figure out that we need more people with eyes and ears. There's a reason why there's a massive campaign out known as See Something, Say Something. Mm-hmm. We've got to get more people to champion that cause of public safety. Be a public safety advocate. Be a responsible citizen. Do your part for a greater and safer country. That means that get involved in your community. Know what it looks like to be an advocate for safety. Report suspicious activity. So to that end, we are leading by example in the city of Coral Gables. And we're leading by example because ACM Iglesias and I work very closely together with all the department directors to make public safety everyone's responsibility. Everyone has an added responsibility, but in addition to that, they have the responsibility of being public safety advocates and champions. An example would be code enforcement. Not only are they out there and they report to ACM Iglesias, not only are they out there doing code enforcement, they're out there looking out for suspicious activity. The fire department that typically in most cities, when they're responsible for responding to an emergency call from the firehouse, and as soon as they're done taking that patient or putting out that fire, they go right back to that firehouse. Well, today here in Coral Gables, leading by example, this has changed. Code enforcement is now not a responsibility of looking out. the fire department on the way back to that firehouse from a call, they have a responsibility to go to certain locations that we believe are areas of interest in terms of public safety. And so that provides better presence, better awareness, visibility, what we call omnipresence. So the strategy that we put forward here in Coral Gables is a holistic strategy that involves all city employees for a safer and better tomorrow. We want to lead by example. We need to attract the attention of the community, leading by example, that they also have to be an advocate for safety. That it just can't be calling 911. It has to be them being more vigilant to suspicious activity. It's unfortunate, but with terrorism around the world, we used to think that terrorism was something that happened in somebody else's country, not ours. But as you saw most recently in New York City, they've had 2 incidences where a very unstable individual drove over a number of different citizens that were partaking in an event. Just a couple weeks after that, an individual decided to blow up a bomb in a subway area. These are the circumstances that we're going to see happening, unfortunately, going into the future. And so as a country, as a community, we have to be more actively involved in safety and awareness. And I believe that here in Coral Gables, through the vision of the city manager, we are leading with best practices in these strategies. We're leading by example. We have all of the city employees involved. And it is a holistic approach to public safety. To that end, as the manager mentioned, we're seeing record number lows in terms of crime statistics. We're going back 15, 20 years, all-time lows in crime. We're seeing record low numbers in burglaries to homes, record low numbers in burglaries to automobiles, which is a chronic problem across the entire country. But yet here in Coral Gables, we're seeing massive reduction. The city manager provided funding for a force multiplier. What that means is that we're able to utilize technology to provide that added effort to keep an eye out in the community. So today, for example, we have a geofence around the city. So when we have criminals coming in, we're able to read those tag numbers off of their vehicles and match them up to a hot list that tells us, is that car stolen? Is that an offender that we're looking for? Is that a robber or a burglar that we have interest in? Or a repeat criminal? As we know, the recidivism in this system is quite frequent. So we know who our common criminals are. This system allows us to detect them on the way in and on the way out in many different locations. Additionally, in the inner core of the city, we have installed numerous cameras. In particular, when you look at Miracle Mile and the surrounding area, Giralda, you'll notice poles in the median with cameras. Those cameras are all piped into a crime intelligence center, whereby it's being monitored by an individual looking at these cameras, providing real-time awareness to our police officers. Again, under the theme of leading by example and hopefully enticing and encouraging and inspiring citizens to take an active role in the safety of our country. We live in a different world today. Absolutely. Those cameras are being utilized for the safety of our community, but to also lead by example. And we look for those community champions to come forward and help them be a safer community, but also a safer country.
We're so committed to the use of technology to support our public safety initiatives. In fact, yesterday I was at a problem-solving initiative meeting, which has all departments contributing and involved, recognizing that license plate readers, one of our police officers, because they're helping with these strategies as well, one of the police officers said, not only should we load in the criminals that are wanted, but we should also load in their associates, because sometimes there's a crime and 3 people have caused the crime and we've only arrested 1. And so we're going to add to that license plate reader process. Our goal is to have the criminals not come to Coral Gables at all. And so through this use of technology, it's one of the reasons why he also has operational authority over information technology. We're able to be even more strategic. We just received our Gold Calais standard with excellence, and that's the highest rating that a police department can get. I will tell you, when I had the privilege of meeting with the assessors They were absolutely floored. They said we are best in practice, period, in terms of use of technology in strategic policing. It's that kind of thing, that kind of momentum that has been established that is resulting in crime being down record lows, and we're pushing that forward.
And these results tied back to the strategy that we mentioned earlier, that we are combining all these departments under different umbrellas so we can be more prepared and have a faster and more comprehensive response when an emergency situation comes forward. Director Fernandez, so the audience has an idea, in the past, all these departments were working independently, but now because we've had this umbrella of safety and you are intertwining with all these departments, and now the information is flowing easily. Director Fernandez, you are not only in charge of the basic safety, fire and police, we are incorporating other departments into this umbrella of safety. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, as the manager mentioned, the problem-solving initiative meetings are designed as a think tank opportunity for all department directors. So there is where we design crime-fighting strategies. And believe it or not, many of our crime-fighting strategies don't come by way of police officers. Many do, but a lot of them come by way of other department directors and other department employees. They're in a room, we ask them to think out loud, and they give us strategies from a different perspective. We add as much as we can into that envelope of safety by putting everyone into that room and making them a champion for a safer tomorrow. If you look around, some of our vehicles on the street have a little yellow light on top that flashes. It's unassuming. It's just a small little light. And the idea behind this is that people see that there's government at work. People want to see government at work, but also criminals, when they see government at work, they're seeing safety, and they don't like safety. It's like a clean city is a safe city. People's perception is a reality. If they perceive things are clean, they perceive them to be safe. If they see government at work, they believe that they're safer. All that equation leads to a criminal's mind, I don't want to go in there. So that geofence is not just technology, but it's a geofence, our most important and valuable asset, our employees, to be valuable owners and champions of public safety, and always being out there with the tools and the knowledge base to act appropriately when they see something wrong. When you think about in the past, and also in other cities, it's a silo. Everybody works in their own little world. They come to work and they go home. Bringing it all together is leadership. Bringing it all together is a need today for a safer tomorrow. Not because of Coral Gables, because what's happening around the country. It's a problem. It's not that we're going to have a terrorist attack here in Coral Gables, but it could happen anywhere, and we must be prepared. And I'd like to share with you an example. Most recently, we had the tree lighting ceremony. And I'm confident that many people, when they arrived, they noticed a different outer perimeter, outer look to that event. We try to make it subtle, but we want to send two messages when we have these events. Message number one, to a person who has bad intentions, that we are secured and we are ready and prepared to identify, apprehend, deter, and mitigate immediately if you decide to do something bad in the city of Coral Gables. Number two, when residents arrive to have a fun event at any one of our locations, that they feel safe. We call it a buffer zone. So think about buffering an area. So as you walked up, you saw many of our pieces of equipment from Mr. Iglesias' shop. So dump trucks, things that we utilize. We're placing them in strategic locations to stop any sort of potential penetration of a vehicle into that event. Then we call it a triple redundancy strategy. So everything that we do in the city under emergency management has to have triple redundancies. A philosophy that the city manager believes in and that we're driving forward. That means we had a dump truck, we had a fire truck, we had a police vehicle, or a regular pickup truck. And behind that we have these disguised barriers. And then behind that we have these French barricades with unique tools that are designed to stop vehicle penetrations or to mitigate them. But the public, when they're arriving, they're not seeing this over-intrusive security measure where they don't feel secure. It's subtle enough to not cause alarm, but protective enough to deter a person with bad intentions.
Thank you, Director Fernandez.
Another instance with his operational authority is human resources. And you might wonder, why human resources? We're doing background checks on all city employees because we may be in your backyard, we're going to be on your street. The issues of not only cybersecurity, but age, seniors, targeting seniors. We want to know that the people that are wearing our uniforms in all instances are good people. That's critically important. But you've also heard about the recruitment of police officers. At some point, we had a very high vacancy rate. We wanted to hire police officers, but we didn't want to compromise. Sometimes bad hires are a 30-year problem. And so they revised the total recruitment strategy, developed strategic partnerships with other groups, made harder credentials, not easier credentials, and enforced them. And now today we have 3 vacancies. We're actually in the process of hiring more. And so we're going to continue to keep that momentum going. Yesterday at Public Safety Problem Solving Initiative, they gave an award to FIU. One of the strategic partnerships that has been formed has been working with the colleges as they identify the right caliber of potential police officer. We'll pay them to go through academy. We'll put them on salary and insurance, but you've got to start with the right stock. And FIU has been an excellent partner. In fact, 25% of the public safety hires, that's police, it's fire, it's dispatch, the public safety hires, 25% last year came through the FIU door. And we're working with them to continue that momentum. But it's through the authority of human resources and the good work that they're doing under that portion of the umbrella.
Absolutely. That's a very good strategy in terms of safety. But now let's take a look of our other branch of administration, which is building and structures.
I am just as excited. I am so blessed because I have the subject matter as experts in the critical categories for the city. So you've heard how excited I am on public safety and the 5 operations that are there. Equally excited about ACM Iglesias with operations and infrastructure. That is development services, whether it is planning, whether it is code, whether it is building and inspections. It is public works. It's below the ground. It's above the ground. It is doing all of the different things, whether it is sewers or capital plan. It is all of those aspects. But it's also parking. We earn $13 million a year on parking. We have more than 7,000 spaces both on street and off street. It is a major industry and a critical service to the public, but it's also historical resources and cultural arts and economic development. Assistant City Manager Iglesias has operational authority over all of those, and he brings his added expertise. He is a structural engineer himself. He is chief building official. He is an advisor to BORA. He also works with the University of Miami as a volunteer and FIU in terms of capacity and wind and structure, so that when we come in and we approve a building, we need to know, you need to know that that building is going to be safe. Things are uncompromising as it relates to life safety and public safety. So we had to get someone that could really lead that could take us to the next generation of permitting, which is actually online and electronic permitting. We're doing everything by paper now, so we need to be able to migrate that to the electronic permitting. We have millions of dollars that we need to invest in the restoration of our historic structures. You've heard this little project called Streetscape, $23 million. Assistant City Manager Iglesias arrived 3 days after the streetscape plan had been decided. And so his job was to implement it. He would get down in the holes and redesign and make the corrections because there were errors in the design plans. And we can't afford that. Flooding, structure, other challenges, and his expertise allowed instant decisions, instant corrections, so that that $23 million project that is on the Mile and Giralda will come out perfectly. because that's an investment for several years. So I am fiercely excited also with the national level credentials that we have on the other side of the shop, which is the operations and infrastructure.
Well, you did a wonderful introduction for Director Peter Iglesias. Thank you so much, Madam City Manager, because precisely she highlighted all the great things about your professionalism. Although one thing was missing, the love for Coral Gables. He's a long-time resident of Coral Gables. You've lived all your life here. You graduated from University of Miami with honors. And of course, the passion that you feel for this city is what drives you and your professionalism together to make better decisions for Coral Gables. Mr. Iglesias, tell us about your experience coming on board as a director of building and all these infrastructure projects.
Well, it's great. It's great working for Coral Gables. I've lived here, grew up here. When, as you said, I went to UM, lived here for over 40 years. So it's a very special city. It's really, I feel it's my city, having grown up here. As a structural engineer, general contractor, and building official, it really is quite an opportunity to help the city grow. I've been in the private sector for over almost 25 years. Then I went to the public sector. I was in the city of Miami for almost 4 years, was able to work on some very large projects there. One of them is Panorama, which is the tallest 85-story building, tallest building south of New York. Another one was Brickell City Center, which is a $1.6 billion project. Again, probably the most expensive project built south of New York City. So having worked in Miami in these large projects, really provided quite a bit of experience. We have now Mediterranean Village, which is now called the Plaza, which is about a $400 million project. And so it really helps working on large projects in the public sector. I worked in high-rise buildings, heavy industrial buildings. And so it gives me an opportunity to work with the private sector side and the public sector side. I'm trying to merge both. In having worked on both sides, I understand the problems in the private sector. I understand the problems in funding and all the issues that these large projects have. However, working on the public sector, I also need to look at life safety, which is uncompromising. You cannot compromise life safety. It is the most important thing that we do, whether it's a street that's designed properly, where people can have an accident, or a child can get run over, or a structure. We all look at building collapses, which is they're in the paper all the time. But that's just one of them. For instance, you can flip an electrical switch and get electrocuted. So structures are very complicated. Buildings are millions of parts come together into a building. We look at this building now and don't realize how many pieces it is to make it to actually make a building. And what the issues are, and what our expectations are, and what our inspection requirements are. We have to be, we want to work, as I say, to the development industry, we work with you, but not for you. We work here from a life safety perspective, whether it's in public works, whether it's in the building department. Certainly, we also work with zoning, which is extremely important. We want to have a city that's very livable, and zoning and building provide for what is essentially Coral Gables. It's the zoning department makes Coral Gables. The fact that we have a strong building department makes for Coral Gables. That's a difference that this city has. And as Director Fernandez said, when you have a city that looks good, then even from a crime perspective, it works out. It deters crime. So we look at the Public Works Department. Public Works Department has public service, which deals with Director Fernandez kids around all the time. That's the most important part because it makes the city look good and it lowers crime. We also have sanitation, which is a huge issue for the city, as we experienced during Hurricane Irma. So all these departments really provide for what what is required really to make this a very special city, and what other cities have actually modeled themselves for. We have some various new cities, I won't mention who they are, but they've modeled themselves after Coral Gables because of the success that the city has had. Our city has had.
Speaking about Irma, I guess one of the most challenging moments in your tenure here in Coral Gables was the aftermath of Hurricane Irma. Tell us how you managed the decisions during this emergency crisis.
Well, we've given him multiple challenges because it was also done while Streetscape was happening and while we're doing our new public safety building, which is another discussion. So we have thrown on him multiple fiercely important challenges. Irma, a hugely large storm. I think people don't realize that it was much larger than Wilma, that it was in terms of volume, in the likes of Hurricane Andrew. And so we threw that to him as well. This was in charge of the public safety, Director Fernandez, the public safety piece when we were batting down the hatches and we thought 185 mile per hour storm was going to hit us straight on with 220 mile per hour winds. As ACM Iglesias would say, if we got that, total building collapse. And so the Director Fernandez had the baton during the storm itself, a storm that lasted 12 hours hovering over us and left us with multiple debris. 1,000 trees had to be uprighted, 600 trees were removed, and the final count on the number of debris was, he'll probably have the update, was about
over 360,000.
Over 360,000. Wilma being much, much smaller. And so, yes, we did pass that baton from first the public safety piece over to the life safety and delivery of the recovery stage over to
Absolutely. That was
ACM Iglesias.
That was by far the most challenging times for the city overall because all the components needed to come together to rebuild our city and put it back in the position that it was before the hurricane. And so I witnessed you working day and night during the recovery and the aftermath. Tell us what lessons can be learned from this.
Well, let me just say that we were extremely fortunate, as the manager said. We initially thought we had a 185 mile per hour hurricane. 185 mile per hour hurricane has gusts of over 220 miles per hour. That is like what we look at in Oklahoma and so forth. That's like an F5 tornado. So that would have been a devastating blow to Coral Gables or to the entire part of Dade County, including downtown and so forth. So let's just say we were very, very, very fortunate. We picked up about over 360,000 cubic yards of debris created by the hurricane. Hurricane Wilma was, to give an example, 215,000 cubic yards. We cleared, and by cleared I mean cutting branches that were leaning or falling, 16,000 trees. 16,000 trees. We picked up all kinds of debris within the road. We cleared the roadway within 3 days and also passable for trucks within 5. And that was very important because I remember living here through Hurricane Andrew and not having garbage pickup. And that was huge. I can tell you that the area across my house did not look very well. I live near the Lincoln property. So we were very concerned about picking up garbage. So within 5 days, we were able to get trucks through, pick up garbage. Within the first week, we were picking up garbage. Second week, we were picking up recyclable materials. So those are very important issues. What constraints did we have? We have a tremendous amount of material. We had a material that's probably close to 1/2 of what City of Miami had. Yet we don't. Where do we put it? We don't.
We need to remind people that our canopy is much larger than any other city in Miami-Dade County.
38,000 city trees.
Absolutely. So.
And we had a storm for more than a decade. So the canopy issue created quite a number of problems. Tremendous amount of tree debris. Actually, access in some areas was actually limited because the canopy is so low as far as trucks. Big issue that we have is where do we put our trash? We have nowhere to put that, debris. Where do we put that debris caused by Hurricane Irma? So we have Lee Lincoln property, which is a problem. It's got a school next to it. Which has all kinds of constraints. We have a country called Prado, which I'm sure the people there did not want all that debris after, like what happened after Hurricane Andrew. And so we created a debris site in 72nd Avenue. Small debris site, 72nd Avenue, small debris site right at the corner of 8th Street and Country Club Prado. And then we were able to lease 2 acres of property near our 72nd Avenue facility. That created 3 small sites. Now, they don't hold a lot of debris. So we had a logistics issue. We had to be able to get that debris in and get the debris out. So we were 2.5 weeks faster than any other city in getting our debris out. What we would do is get the debris in, mulch it, and then get the mulch trucks out. They had to go out actually to Pompano Beach because there was no facility in Dade County that would take that. So that was a huge logistics issue, is getting the debris in. You're limited to small sites. And we were able to get waste management to take our debris in Pompano Beach. So we would have to actually truck the debris in, mulch it, and truck the debris out in a synchronized way to be able to do that. One more thing is that we actually did not increase our costs. We were so efficient in our system that the truckers would go to other cities that were paying more and come back to us because we could get more. They could get more production, even though they were getting paid less. They were getting more production in our city than other cities. You would rather truckers don't want to wait 2.5 hours to dump something. We were dumping things in 15, 20 minutes. So at the end of the day, they were actually making more money, which means that we should get most of our costs back by FEMA with minimal issues because we did not exceed any of our pre-existing contracts. So, and we were able to clear the city with our first pass within 3 weeks.
FEMA wants you to use pre-storm negotiated contracts. And so he was able to design a system that made it more lucrative for truckers to come through, pick up our debris, because they could get in, faster, pick up more of that debris. They would get more money than some of the other areas that busted through their contracts and elevated the price, which caused additional stress for us. This was an $18 million storm that we had. Reimbursement is going to be critically important. Following the FEMA rules is critically important. Also, the decision that you made on separating garbage from tree. We had the pleasure, Mayor Raul Valdez and I had the pleasure of going on a tour with him in what's called a gator. We risked our lives as he was touring us around. But as you walk into those or drive into those debris sites, you smell fresh wood. It was like you were at a wood shop. I remember during Hurricane Andrew, where city mixed the garbage with the trees, and what you smelled was foul. And it caused rats, it attracted animals. It was a huge problem. So that decision, combined with honoring the hours of debris, coordinating all of that, made for a sustainable, environmentally appropriate storm response in addition to a very efficient one.
And without having to use other resources of the city, such as the Lee Lincoln property, Country Club Prado, and actually the residents at Country Club Prado almost did not realize that we were operating there. We have 0 complaints, and
it was at the very north of 8th Street. We did not want to be right across from single-family homes with this massive debris collection. So he did not allow it on Lee Lincoln, although we could have, did not allow it on Country Club Prado at Coral Way, although prior storms allowed it. It was up in this little triangle by 8th Street, and I will tell you the only resident that approached him hugged him in that immediate neighborhood. So it was really well received. We also looked at hours of operation so that we wouldn't impact the residents that are around. But when you talked about a little debris site at 72nd Avenue, that little debris site was 2 football field size. Mm-hmm. It was huge. And they cleared it, created it, and made it work.
Yes.
It was very large. It was large, but it wasn't large enough to store material only. We had to get the material there and get it out quickly. One of the issues about not increasing our contracts is our reimbursables by FEMA should be very high, and should not be questioned, because we use the we follow the existing contracts, the pre-storm contracts. So we should really maximize our reimbursables from FEMA, which would be millions of dollars.
Well, and along those lines of Irma impacting us, I'm going to throw it back to Director Fernandez in terms of safety. What lessons were learned from Irma, and what can we do for upcoming storms? Hopefully we won't have any in any near future, but in case, are we sufficiently prepared to face a Category 4 or 5 storm?
The public should be reassured that we are professionally prepared to handle any type of storm that comes our way. The theme that comes to mind when we talk about emergency management is resiliency. The ability to react to that storm and to get back into operational needs immediately, as quickly as possible. We set up a benchmark for us, or a goal, that as soon as the area was cleared and safe, we gave each director 6 hours to become operational in the respective areas. So that means that each one of them throughout the city had to have a triple backup plan, and a deliberate action plan, an emergency plan, a contingency plan, that they would become operational within 6 hours of notice. That we're telling them it's all clear, get back into operations. So lessons learned for us is to make sure that we have those triple redundancies in place. We had them for every department. We became operational within hours after the storm subsided. Most departments were operational. I'd say 80 to 85% were back to work. Whether it was in an office or somebody else's office or out on the sidewalk, they were providing services to the community immediately. In terms of our operational capacity, we follow a continuity of operations plan, an emergency action plan that we have in place for storms, and we follow it to a T. It's a very strict environment, very deliberate communications being done. As a matter of fact, through your office, we had one of the best videographers there with us to record all the time and put it live on Facebook so the community can see what we were going through in preparation for that storm. And I think that's one of the first of its kind. I've never seen that before. That was done by your office to reassure the public that it's okay, we have it under control. And that reinforcement is a lesson learned for future storms, to extend that information out, utilize those media platforms to reassure the public that we are prepared to handle it. However, another lesson learned for us is that we've had this platform of help us help you for 72 hours. That's been a county-wide platform on storm preparation. That means that we're telling the public, help us help you, be ready to sustain yourself for 72 hours. I believe that the public, having gone after the storm here, needs to understand that they need to be ready for more than 72 hours. The long lines of gas, which was an overreaction because of Harvey in Texas, after the storm became the long lines at the regular supermarket, at the Publix, Winn-Dixie's, Whole Food. It became those long lines because people were overreacting, thinking that everything was going to run out. The other part of it is, in terms of resiliency, everyone needs to know that if you have a generator, including our commercial industry like Publix, Winn-Dixie, the gas stations, they need to maintain them. Many of those generators were not properly maintained, so when they cranked them up, and this goes along to the area of Mr. Iglesias, when they started those generators up, they may have worked. In some cases they didn't work because they weren't properly maintained, but those that did work, in several cases, they started up, but because they weren't properly maintained, they shut down after a short period of time. All that food that was kept in those supermarkets went bad very quickly because the freezer stopped working, and therefore it compromised the inventory of those supermarkets. So I would say that resiliency is a word that we will take to heart to make sure that we are prepared beyond 72 hours in the city. We also extend that to the public. Make sure you're prepared for beyond 72 hours. Worst case scenario.
And Madam City Manager, anything to add in terms of Irma?
There were some very good lessons learned. One was we ran a 24-hour citizen call-in. If somebody was concerned about a tree falling down, if somebody was concerned about electric wires, they aren't always 911 emergency calls, but they need to be addressed. And our dispatchers, who are absolutely fearless and working round the clock, we were able to take some of those calls off. Elderly woman, alone, worried. We were able to take that with city employees handling those calls in the kind of care that our residents expect. So we will continue that 24-hour call center in the future that takes off some of the burden for 911, so 911 can focus on those public safety emergencies. But the other piece was CGTV was excellent. They got social media, they used Twitter, they used Facebook, they used all sorts of tools to get that message out, and that helped calm the public. There were some that perhaps aren't into social media, aren't into Facebook, and we realized what is another way that we can communicate with the public during these fiercely emergency important times. And so you can't get the newspaper out because the newspaper takes too long.
Or TV.
TV, if you don't have electric, TV doesn't work, you're right. And so CGTV is reaching out and negotiating with the University of Miami for the possibility of WVUM doing an emergency radio time so that you may not have TV, but you might have that transistor radio where we can still communicate with it. Whether it's VUM, whether it's WLRM, or whether we do it our own, how we can get radio added to that emergency communications under those very special events where we must get that word out.
Okay, so it's time to wrap it up. And before we go, I would like to ask you all, in the new year, in the 2018 year, what are the priorities and the vision of each of your respective capacities for the City Beautiful? Let's start with Director Peter Iglesias.
The first is finishing Miracle Mile and Giralda, our street safe project. They should be done in the first quarter of 2018. Actually, we would like to finish the project in January with some minor touch-up work after that. So that's a major project. I think the mile produces so much revenue for the city, our commercial area, that certainly it's a very high priority for me to finish this project and finish it correctly. I think it's going to be a stunning project. I think it already is. And I'm looking forward to finishing it early next year. We also have the public safety building, which will be on Salcedo, north of Miracle Mile. That is going to be a state-of-the-art public safety building with fire and police. And we are working on those plans right now, and we would like to start construction of the project next year. We're also looking at starting construction of the Fire Station 2 project next year, which is at the current fire station on US 1. It will be a fire station project and a trolley building project, so we can have the trolleys locally in the city instead of storing them right now out of the city boundaries. It will be certainly more efficient for that, and also from a safety perspective, we will have a modern fire station in the north side of the city and a modern fire station in the middle of the city. So those are the three largest projects that we have, and we also have quite a number of projects in our capital improvements. We are looking at right now as implementing a new program for development services and for public works, which will provide for electronic plan review. Means that the plans can be submitted electronically. And so that the service will be certainly a much better, faster, and more efficient service. In addition to that, we are looking at a GIS-based system. In other words, a system where you can click on a, let's say your sidewalk's broken, you can click on that sidewalk and send something to Public Works saying, this sidewalk is broken in this area. So we want to have the entire city. It's going to take about 2 years. However, we will be implementing it in 2018, and that is to have the entire city on GIS. So So if you see a stop sign that's down, you can click on that stop sign, send the information to Public Works, and for instance, in that case, we would immediately send the information to Dade County to actually repair it. Instead of providing plans in paper, you are providing them electronically. So now everybody can review them at the same time. So we have, instead of sending plans to historical or to fire or so forth, everybody will have it. It will be a state-of-the-art, really, workstations where you can look at the plan in a large view instead of small monitors. So the efficiency will actually increase, and we'll have better productivity and better service for our residents.
Thank you. Director Fernandez?
Well, you know, the resolution for next year is, number one, maintaining and sustaining what we have. I'll touch on the different departments, but in terms of emergency management, 2018 is going to be a phenomenal year. We're looking to ensure that word resiliency is our driving force, and that's going to be our platform for 2018. In terms of the police department, we want to make sure that we sustain the low number of police vacancies, that we provide the best learning opportunity for those police officers, to provide the best service to our community with the basic vision of truth, justice, and fundamental fairness for everyone that they come across, and that procedural justice and legitimacy in what we do as the foundation of their mindset. In terms of the fire department, we're looking to make sure that all of our apparatus continues to be at its highest level. As the manager mentioned, we have both accredited agencies, but we want to make sure that fire department has all the resources to respond to the community's needs in a very quick and good timeline for emergencies. As I look at the Human Resources Department, they've done a phenomenal job of hiring people in the last couple of years. The challenge of hiring police officers across the country is a chronic problem. And they've persevered through those chronic issues. They've developed a great strategy. We drove that strategy through, and today, hopefully by next week, we may be at or somewhere around 0 vacancies, which is remarkable considering the challenges that we're faced with attracting people to become police officers. With a 4% unemployment rate, it's not easy to attract people to become police officers, let alone with all the incidents that are happening around the country, what parents are going to tell their son or daughter, go and become a police officer. Although, for me, if you find a job that you like, you never work a day in your life, I feel like I've never worked. I feel like I'm following my passion and purpose in what I do, and I just love law enforcement, love public safety. I look at labor relations 2018 as a challenge of continuing to sustain all of our labor contracts. Those can create an enormous amount of distractions, and today, we have a stable platform when it comes to labor negotiations. We have negotiated 4 contracts since we've been here, and we look forward to sustaining those as we go into 2018. In terms of information technology, wow, this is going to be an incredible year. The wow factor is going to hit everyone. It's not about Big Brother watching, but it's about Big Brother providing a safe environment. And technology is being used as a force multiplier. And the new innovative strategies that we're putting forward in 2018 when it comes to technology is unlike anything any city has ever seen before. In some cases, it'll be automated verbal messages with a detection of movement in certain areas. Unlike any other city seen, the idea is to provide real-time crime awareness to our police officers out on the street, so they can be at the right place at the right time to provide that public safety service, as well as for the police department, or for the fire department. I believe that all departments in the city working together can create a better and safer tomorrow, and we're going to continue to do that for 2018. And finally, I think the most important part is for 2018, we need to develop greater champions in our community, public safety champions that are advocates for safety, that take on a pledge for a safer country. And that entails having them be trained, providing education, so they know that it's okay to call 911. Don't be fearful of calling that 3-digit number, 911. It doesn't hurt. We don't charge. It's free. We don't get angry. We get excited when you call because you're alerting us that there could be a potential problem. We want to make sure we develop as many community champions for public safety. Number one, for our country. It needs it today. And number two, equally as important, for a safer Coral Gables. We're seeing record number lows in terms of crime, as well as a perception of crime. And I would tell you that in order to sustain that, it's got to be a team effort. It's got to be all of the community working together, all of the city employees working together, and everyone has an added interest and an added responsibility, whether you're an employee or a citizen. We all have a responsibility to be a safer, well-informed, educated citizen and be part of that public safety team.
Madam City Manager, your resolution for 2018.
We have a lot of projects on the burner. One is to support the great leadership that we have in both the Assistant City Manager, Director of Public Safety, and the Assistant City Manager for Operations and Infrastructure. I have to make sure those resources are in place in order for them to implement the vision and the momentum in those departments. Financial sustainability. We are a AAA bond-rated city of 3 rating agencies, the triple as we call it. We have to make sure that we maintain that financial stability. But we're also interested in the annexation question, both Little Gables and High Pines Ponce Davis, but we will only pursue that if it enhances the level of service in Coral Gables, or at least doesn't challenge it, and we are able to successfully manage the new areas coming in. So that whole annexation question, what point can we do it in order to position Coral Gables for continued strength rather than challenge it? But as we opened the interview, we talked about the vision for becoming that exceptional city where our residents, our businesses, and our employees wouldn't dream of being anywhere else. We need to continue to move that level of performance up. You're going to see us doing resident surveys, resident satisfaction surveys. We use Venetian Pool as an example. We want people to love Venetian Pool, but when you do over 90% of the people that use Venetian Pool are not Gables residents. We want to measure how those residents feel. And so you're going to be seeing a citywide resident survey program, and that's a part of our goals for 2018.
Excellent, very interesting. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for joining another episode of Coffee Talk. And thank you for watching another episode of Coffee Talk. It's been a pleasure chatting with Coral Gables City Manager, Miss Kathy Swanson Rivenbark, with Assistant City Manager and Public Safety Director Frank Fernandez, and Assistant City Manager Peter Iglesias. Thank you for the time with us. We'll see you next Coffee Talk. Stay safe.